stand up. I am very quiet. Let the months and years come. They can take nothing from me. They can take nothing more. I am so alone and so without hope that I can confront them without fear. The life that has borne me through these years is still in my hands and my eyes. Whether I have subdued it, I know not. But so long as it is there, it will seek its own way out, heedless of the will that is within me. He fell in October 1918, on a day that was so quiet and so still on the whole front that the Army report confined itself to a single sentence: all quiet on the Western Front. He had fallen forward and lay on the earth as though sleeping. Turning him over, one saw that he could not have suffered long. His face had an expression of calm, as though almost glad the end had come.
The main protagonist goes by the name of Paul Baumer. Paul and his classmates, Jodin, Kropp, Lear, and Mueller, are pressured into enlisting by their extremely patriotic teacher, Kantorek. Jodin, a locksmith, was very scrawny and tall. Kropp was a lance corporal and the clearest thinker of the group. Mueller, an extremely good math student, calculates the angle at which the bombs will hit the ground and explode, and with how much force, with his deep knowledge of physics. And Lear, the ladies' man, whose favorite part of the army may very well be the officers' brothel. The whole group is 19 years of age, and completely unprepared for life at the front. In their time there, they make other acquaintances, such as Katczynski, the oldest and the wisest, always one step ahead of everyone else. Together, and together only, they will be forced to work as a unit to push through the adversities and survive the atrocities of life on Germany's harsh and unforgiving Western Front during World War I. This book is extremely sad at times, others confusing, but never a dull moment.
In the book, All Quiet on the Western Front, by Erich Maria Remarque, Paul goes through an extreme amount of pain and suffering just to survive on the front. Paul has been on the front for years now, and he has faced many life-threatening obstacles. Then, as I try to raise up my head, I see it is impossible already. The machine gun fire so sweeps the ground that I should be shot through and through before I could make one jump. In times like that, he has had to make decisions where one could end in life, the other death. He has survived through all of this, for he has the will to live another day. In Chapter 9, Paul and his comrades are tasked to scout on the enemy to assess the strength of them. While he is scouting, Paul is caught in an artillery barrage, and even though he tries to run back to friendly trenches, something comes over him. My limbs are glued to the earth. I make a vain attempt. They refuse to come away. I press myself down on the earth. I cannot go forward. I make up my mind to stay lying there. Paul knows that after an artillery strike, an enemy attack is bound to come, and in his desperation to live, he hides himself in the bottom of a muddy crater. However, something unexpected happens. They have not broken through. They have to retreat. And during the retreat, an enemy soldier falls in the crater with Paul. I do not think at all. I make no decision. I strike madly at home, and feel how only the body suddenly convulses, then becomes limp and collapses. When I recover myself, my hand is sticky and wet. The man gurgles. It sounds to me as though he bellows. Every gasping breath is like a cry, a thunder. But it is not only my heart pounding. I want to stop his mouth, stuff it with earth, stab him again. He must be quiet. He's betraying me. Now, at last, I regain control of myself, but have suddenly become so feeble that I cannot lift my hand against him. Savagely, Paul repeatedly stabs the man that fell into the shell hole and he was playing dead in. This portrays how trench warfare has brought out the worst. the beast, inside of Paul, not only in him, but also in every one of his comrades and enemies. Mindless killing has become second nature. Mindless killing is the only way to survive on the front. Mindless killing is the only way to return home. Moreover, mindless killing is inhumane, but without it, one will not survive the front. In all Paul's time in the war, he has come to the conclusion that he wants to survive and live another day with his comrades and his family. However, the only way he can return home and see his family is to take any means necessary to survive, even if that means savagely putting an end to another man's life.
It's truly sad. The more time I reflect on this novel, the more empathy and sympathy I have towards Paul and his classmates. They were just starting to live their lives, but they were lost. The lost generation. This book really was something else. Such a sad and depressing book. Chapters 11 and 12, they may have been short, but were packed with so much emotion. It made me extremely sad how Paul tried so desperately to save his last comrade, the one who was like a father to him, but he eventually was unable. This book did not have a happy ending. It had a realistic ending. Death. Death is the end. At the beginning of chapter 11, Paul described the war as a type of disease. And we found that to be true. It's something that takes and almost never gives. I thought Dettering's escape was going to be successful, and he could live a life in peace that every person deserves. He was caught, and to me, that was heartbreaking. There has probably been so many examples in history where someone was fighting a meaningless war that they did not want to take part in, and all they wanted was to come back home. Paul said anyone might have known that his flight was only homesickness and a momentary aberration. But what does a court-martial 100 miles behind the front line know about it? We have heard nothing more of Dettering. After these chapters, I've gotten a new sense of thankfulness. I'm glad that I most likely won't have to go to war and throw most of my life away. I'm glad that I can live my life like all should. I'm thankful that every day I can return to my family and that I don't have to worry about fighting a war. Out of all the chapters, chapter 11 amazingly showed the pain that these soldiers were going through. The times when they were glad they were dying were so confusing, yet extremely eye-opening. Why would they want death, the thing they've been avoiding their whole life? They would just let it take them? They will never be themselves again, for this war has forever changed them. We learned many things from this book, mainly the horrors and atrocities of modern warfare. This book took war on a large scale and brought it down to a few specific examples of how terrible and devastating it is. Although this war had happened 100 years ago, this book made it seem very real and current. We saw that the soldiers were devastated when their comrades fell, even though they knew the end was sure to come, as it did for most. We saw how savage and beastly the soldiers were turned into when faced with the atrocities of the war. We saw many things in this book, but the main takeaway I had is that war is not just one country fighting against another. It is human beings killing and killing. Overall, this book helped me see many things, but one of my main takeaways is that war is extremely terrible. Now that I have read this book, I will encourage our leaders not to use war as a viable option out of stupid conflicts, and just to use brute force to get their way in petty matters. but as a last resort. For war is real human beings, mindlessly killing, harming, and ending each other's lives, and not just a way to solve conflicts. I really liked this book, and I hope we read more like it in the future.